Hello guys, tuning today we're going to be listening about bees at our public library. So go and look at this video. I hope you guys will like it.
Somebody might be able to benefit from that, so if they have their inspection guides or their notes and somebody's flipping through them trying to figure out why something happened, well, you go back and you're gonna write down details that you won't remember come next year. So, and you can this one's done by hand, this one's a printed one that you can buy, Amazon. There's also apps that you can use, so.
So what type of things are you noting?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
What type of things are you noting in that log?
So this guide she gave you, that's pretty much everything that you look at.
Yeah, and there's one in there for each month, and there's also, let's see. There's also a page in there that you can put behind, the way I've done mine are on one sheet. And I copied the month on the front side and the extra space for the inspection on the other side. And then I have another page in case I need more room. And I just put these in there. This one is automatic, that one's automatic, but this one only comes as I need it. Of course, you're not gonna need 3 pages for a hive inspection in January. So, but as you go along, you will. And I put an example of a hive inspection that I did in May in the very back. And if you see any misspellings, please cut me some slack. First of all, a lot of this was written with a bee suit on and with very thick gloves. And I'm gonna blame the spelling errors on that, so.
There are other things to pay attention to anyway.
That's right. That's right.
I absolutely agree, taking notes and it's just if you're trying new things, like this year we did some candy boards, we did some Vidali boards, we're trying a different moisture boxes this season, and I need to remember who had what worked, what didn't. You also mark like the strength of your hive, because if you inspect them in May and they're strong, and all of a sudden you inspect them the next month and they're average, something happened. And you need to understand that, so.
You need to look for it,
Yeah, that's right.
We'll go over this one a little more after we finish with the slides, so.
Oh, here's the sort.
Okay, observations and ideas, okay.
Oh my gosh, that is such a great idea. Is this a laundry bag?
Yeah, and I don't see how that works, but I guess it does, so they seem to like it. This swarm trap here is one, they've painted it, but there's plans for this one. I think one sheet of plywood you can make, I believe it's 3 swarm traps. Maybe not exactly like that. But I put this on there because it's so easy to saw off a limb on a tree and then just slide it on there. And we still put a strap around it though to keep the wind from blowing it back and forth. But really and truly, we took our hole saw and made a big hole at the bottom and a little one at the top, so when it slides down on the branch it automatically finds its snuggest point. So it doesn't slip a lot. This one up here, we've tried that. That is hard work. You have to have a ladder, you have to have someone to hold it, you have to have someone to ratchet it. It's a lot easier to do one like this than to get up there and do, put one up like this. I believe these are flower pots. I've seen online people use flower pots, there's corrugated plastic ones that you can buy. These are just a few examples of some of the things that people use for swarm traps.
So the boxes there, are there frames inside that box?
Yes. Yeah, there's frames inside there, and there's bait inside there, which is usually like a lemongrass, very small amount. My mentor told me about somebody who took a cotton ball and basically wet it with lemongrass and then wiped it all over inside of their beehive. And when they introduced the package of bees, of course, they didn't like it. It was too strong, and so they left. So, that was let's see, it would have probably been over $200, I think, for a 3-pound package.
A box of bees or a new?
A package of bees.
They're usually about 140.
150. Okay.
Yeah, news is about 165. I mean, that's what they were last year.
Right, that's right, because I bought 2 at once, so, okay.
I would just say on the swarm traps, I'm a big proponent of catching your own bees. But the difference between these top left and these two are you better be watching these like a hawk. Because you catch a swarm and they start building comb in this, trying to get them out, you might as well just let them live there because that's gonna be a mess. Whereas with these, you actually wanna give them a little bit of time. Cause they'll make it their home, they'll build out some comb, and then when you move them, they don't wanna leave because they'll have eggs and now you got a nuke basically. But like these would be great by your house. If you got and you wanna catch your own swarms, do something like that because you'll be watching them all the time. And it's just like a box of bees, you can shake them into something.
Right,
But don't set those somewhere that you can't watch.
right.
That would be awful. Gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, and I also want to say old deer stands. Old deer stands are awesome to hold swarm traps. My husband had like 1 million that were broken or something was wrong with them, and we just jimmied them on and they're great. No one's gonna steal it.
That's the good thing about bees.
Yeah.
Most people, are gonna say, no, not getting close to
They're
that.
smart.
Yeah.
All right, June.
Okay, hold the honey frame horizontally and shake it over the hive. This is good whenever you're whenever you're looking at your frames. Like I said, I learned the hard way. Whenever you're working with your frames, like I said, I used the little strips and I lost a couple of large chunks, which you can rubber band back in there and put them back in there, but it causes a mess. And when you do, if I were to do that over the ground, I would have lost, the honey and whatever was in there, or at least some of it on the ground. If you do it over your hive and you drop it, then the nectar is going to go down in there on top of the brood, and they're going to clean it up and reuse it. They're going to repurpose it. So little bits of wax, all that stuff, they will repurpose that stuff. So the nectar will still be dilute and watery. Let's see. If the nectar sprinkles out, your bees are on a honey flow. The nectar will still be dilute and watery. With time, the bees will either consume it or continue to thicken and ripen it into honey. I've had this happen to me. I went out to the hive and we had lots of honey and probably about 40% of it capped. And then the next month I went out and there was not as much in there and very sparse, like maybe 20% capped. And I'm expecting it all to be capped so I can go ahead and take it and use it, But actually the bees were using it. They got hungry and, that's their food, so they were using it. So, I don't feed my bees during the summertime. So, but that's just me. Everybody has a different way. Everybody does. So. Okay, let's see. Swarm collecting has been a favorite pastime of bee collectors. let's see, are we on June?
This is June, yes.
What's happening inside the hive? This is much like May, except that the hive will have more bees. The honey and pollen flows continue. The days are long enough the bees can fly for 14 to 16 hours, and they will. There is now plenty of drone brood, which is ideal for varroa production. It's too early to treat for varroa, but it's good to look for these mites by uncapping and examining the capped drone brood. See KSU publication, the varroa mite, an external parasite of honeybees. Look for a little bit more information. Okay, here's the queen laying the eggs, and the bees are feeding them, and the mites get down in there, and they're parasites, so they attach themselves to the larvae, and they basically, feed off of the larvae, and they weaken them. They don't kill them, but they'll weaken them, and if there's enough of them, they will kill them, and then they emerge with them, and then it continues as there's more eggs laid, the process continues. I put these green frames up there in the pictures because these are drone frames. They have large cells, and the queen will lay the size of egg according to what foundation you use. So if you're using this foundation, the cells are already drawn out. These are plastic, but they're coated with wax, and she'll kind of measure that. Well, the workers will build it out, and she'll measure with her legs, and then know what to lay there. And she'll lay drone brood. The reason this is good is because remember I told you that the varroa mites, they love the drones. I told you that about the tracheum mites, but the varroa mites love the drone brood because there's more room in there, so they like to feed off of them. And this is a very effective way to control your mites because they'll migrate to the drone, and then you just take them out and clean them off, and that helps you get rid of them. Not get rid of them completely, but helps you control them.
So the plastic foundations, you should use different ones for like the brood boxes and the honey supers?
I think in this case, these green ones they're just so that you know those are your brood. They're
Those
like
are your
specific,
drone ones.
your drones, yeah. You can use plastic or wood. And some beekeepers say their bees don't like plastic frames, and others have no issues at all with them, so.
But I mean, the foundation itself, I know that I've seen some that are yellow and some are black. Does that mean those are different size cells?
No, I think the yellow you can buy them in different sizes, but I think the difference between the yellow and black is just the color.
Yeah. So like the black are easier to see the eggs, so a lot of beekeepers want that. But the yellow, that's because it's a more familiar color.
Right. I think, my guess would be they made it yellow so it would resemble wax. Yeah. But then they found out that they don't care.
Yeah.
So the black, it's easier to see the eggs, like Kelly
But if
was
you
saying.
do these drone frames to control your mites, you have to make sure that you time it perfectly, because if you forget and let these all hatch, you just infested your colony with the mites. You actually caused them to breed more and faster. So another thing you can do with these is take them out if you have chickens and feed them to your chickens.
Oh, good.
You give them the frames, they'll eat out all they love them. So then they clean them out, you can put it back in.
Wonderful, I didn't think of that, I got
Yeah.
chickens.
Yeah.
Put those
Now-
girls to work.
Yeah.
It will destroy the comb to a point, but you'll still have the majority.
These drone frames are, they're plastic, they're just coated with the wax, so it really wouldn't hurt them unless it just warped them when they're out in the sun. So if you put them someplace where they wouldn't warp, I guess it would be okay.
And this next frame's a little graphic, so.
Yeah. Okay, the beekeeper's tours, what they're doing here is they're uncapping the drone cells. Okay, they've got this little tool, and you take it and you scrape it along the top of the frame, and you pull it. You just basically scoop them up and then you pull it, and you're basically grabbing them by their head and pulling them out of their little homes undeveloped. Yeah, it is graphic. This is them on the fork. So
But that's how you get it,
that-
if you don't have chickens.
that's how you do it. And yeah, and you can see this. What you're doing here with the purpose of this is to check and see what your infestation level is. If you're looking and every one has got a raw mite on there, and I've never done an inspection like this to check. So I don't know how many you're supposed to get on there and what the count's supposed to be, but anything's available online. So, but that's one method. Okay, beekeeper's chores. And by the way, those are drones. The drones are gonna die right about this time of the year anyhow, or maybe even sooner, because they're gonna kill them. They're not gonna overwinter them. So they're gonna kick them out and they're gonna starve or freeze. One of the two, the workers are. So inspect the hive weekly if possible. Provide extra honey supers as needed. Watch for queen cells and destroy all that you find. There's a queen cell. Now that I know what you had said, I don't know if I'd destroy this one, because see the wire there, and that one's got to be up high. So this one is probably an emergency cell, since it's up higher. These are on the bottom. I believe they're on the bottom because it looks like they've got it kind of turned up for the camera so that you can see into them on the bottom.
But those would be like, they would still be turned into normal queen cells, but they're prepping like, hey, if we're gonna swarm, the queen's gonna lay in them, and then we're gonna make them into those queen cells. Whereas, like that one was probably in a position, the egg was there already, so they made it on that side. But yeah, and it's that booklet, I've read it, and it just has the basic steps. And I'm not sure I would go in and destroy all my queens. I mean, am I a bee? No. I mean, they obviously know what's going on. If they feel like they need to requeen, I would let them requeen. That's me, But again, if they had already swarmed like 3 times, I might think, well, this queen is just bad.
Right.
So, anyways, that's just, every beekeeper has their own philosophy.
The brood should now fill many of the frames of the hive bodies, and overcrowding brood nests can stimulate swarming. That's probably, to me, that's the biggest thing that I've seen that causes, I haven't caught them quick enough, and they're overcrowded and they leave, half of them leaves, so, for me. And to provide space, you can spread the brood frames apart and insert 1 or 2 empty frames. It's warm if it's warm enough, and there is no danger of chilling the brood. The queen is looking for empty cells all the time, and she will quickly fill these frames with eggs. If you're going to increase the number of hives that you have by making divides, May or June is the time to do it. And this one right here, I was looking for a picture where they were setting them up on the same hive, but I couldn't really find one, so that's as close as I could get. And these little small boxes here are probably where they've made a divide or a split. But I don't do that, so I don't know a whole lot about that. That's a Kelly question if you have any. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to them before and you wanna split them, that's what I did this year. I didn't have one of mine swarm, but it's all about what your bees are doing.
Right. Okay, what's happening inside the hive? Oh, observations and idea. Walk the roadsides and fields looking for flowering plants with honeybees on them. If the bees are collecting pollen, note the color, taste, and smell, and observe the color of the honey which the bees have just placed in the supers. Over the years, you will learn the seasonal cycle of bee plants. And this one says wildflower. I can't really read that one, but these are either different areas in different plants or different times. July. What's happening inside the hive? The bees are much less active. The honey flow often ends, and the beekeeper will notice that stings are more frequent. This is because the foragers have less to do and consequently spend more time at home guarding the hive. Swarming is still possible, but much less likely. Okay, I'm gonna say something about equipment. We covered equipment in the first one, but I'm gonna just say something here about equipment. If you're a new beekeeper, do not watch the videos where people are going out there checking their beehives in t-shirts and shorts and try that. They have been doing it long enough, and you know, I don't care who you are, I think a bee sting hurts no matter what. So, my mentor, you know, I've seen him get stung and he doesn't just ignore it, he goes like that. So, you know, so, you know, it's gotta hurt. I don't care how many times you've been stung, you know, it still hurts. So just avoid that and put the suit on, you know. And my husband, he accidentally dropped a frame. He had the gloves on. The gloves are slightly too big for him at the time. We got a new glove since then. But he was picking up a frame and he had a little bit of extra glove. And the frame slid off. And I believe it either slid off on that little piece and he pulled it out and it jarred him, or he dropped it. It wasn't far, you know, it was only a very small amount, but it was enough to where bees come up. And I was standing right next to him and they were after him. They were all around him and he had to, they didn't sting him. He walked off calmly, he wasn't swatting at them or anything, he just waited for them to change their mind about what they were doing and return to the hive. But it took a while. It was halfway across the horse pasture, you know, before they decided that they were getting too far away from their house. So
In July, it's so hot, they're usually pretty, I mean, you can have the nicest hive in the world, but they're hot. You might not have as much nectar, like you said, there's more in the hive, and you'll notice a difference in your bees. And then they go back to their normal good self.
right. Bees are now searching for water to cool their hive, and they will fly for miles to find it if necessary. They place small drops of water in the cell and use their wings to fan the air over the cells. It's basically how an air conditioner works. So, beekeeper chores.
This one's awesome.
This guy over here, those little green things are little floating things on a pond, algae or something. And these guys over here, I think they're getting the water. Oh, they're fanning, that's right.
So they're like, it's like placing a fan by a window, they're pulling that hot air out.
Right.
I think that plant is called, it's duckweed.
Duckweed. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot that. That is right. Okay, let's see. August, what's happening in the hive? This month is like July. The bees are still rearing brood, but storing. Wait a minute. I think I skipped a section. What month are we on?
July,
Okay.
yeah, keeper stone
Oh, okay.
and Brenda extraction.
Okay, take the frames in which the honey cells are capped. If the weather has been rainy, the bees may not be able to remove enough moisture to ripen it yet. In the case of many In this case, many of the honey cells may still be uncapped. Leave the honey frames on the hives through a hot day, a dry period, and then check it again. Water availability can become a concern. If water, a stream, a pond, or other clean water is not within a half a mile, provide a source. And the thing about the water is if you can provide one closer, they have to expend less energy. I have a container in my apiary, and I just let the rain fill it up. And I have a floating piece of styrofoam, which I'm probably gonna change that to wood. But the styrofoam gives them something to land on, and then they can take up the water, and they don't have to expend as much energy flying, to the creek, which is fairly close by, but that saves them a little bit of energy, so they can use that energy to make honey for me and to keep the hive regulated. At least that's my theory. This can be a slowly dripping faucet or a large container of water with pieces of wood floating in it. Look for varroa, especially in your strongest hives. Hives with the most bees have the most drone brood. The favorite spot for these mites. Uncap at least a dozen capped drone cells. Remove the pupae and examine them carefully. If you have varroa in these cells, remove the honey harvest as soon as possible and treat it with the two Apstatan and checkmate. If you do not find varroa, repeat the examination in the following weeks. Sticky boards placed on the bottom of the boards are more accurate indicators than drone brood checks. If there's over 15 mites per day are falling onto the sticky boards, they are reaching dangerous levels. You can do this with two-sided tape, or there's lots of things that you can do. One of them is if you find those tablecloths on sale, the plastic ones, take those, cut them to fit your bottom board, use a little bit of two-sided tape on each corner, turn them upside down, and slide them in there, and then slide them back out and count the mites, just like you normally would. The advantage of this is the hive beetles can't get off of it, they're stuck there, so.
You mean that on the bottom where it has like that material that felt like, okay.
Yeah. So, but then whatever you use, make sure it's a good surface. Like, you don't want to use something that has a pattern that shows through the bottom, because you need to count the mite, and this is hard. This is hard. So, I have to break out a magnifying glass and take a look. So, this one's a little easier. They show up a little bit better. I think this one's probably been in there a little longer, maybe, or it's a larger hive. So, okay. Okay, hives can successfully be requeened in July and August. However, it's harder to find the old queen in a hive packed with bees in midsummer compared to a much smaller hive population in April. It is a good idea to feed the bees to encourage acceptance of a new queen. If requeening is done when the bees are not on a honey flow. Observations and ideas. Scout the area near the hives to see where your bees are finding water. They may be a nuisance to the neighbors if your bees are falling into their swimming pools. Some beekeepers plant crops in the spring to supplement their honey production in July and August. Buckwheat, vitex, and sunflower are plants that can provide nectar in midsummer. At KSU, we have found that buckwheat is a relatively drought-resistant nectar source. That's that one right there. And that's the vitex, and the sunflower is easy. Okay, in August, what's happening inside the hive? This is much like July. The bees are still rearing brood, but storing little honey, and they still need water. Late summer is the time for bees to try to rob from other hives. That one over there, I assume that's not his hive. So, let's see. If you have more than one hive, don't open the hive for more than a few minutes. Unguarded honey leads to a robbing frenzy. Even if you close the hive, the robbing bees remain in the same frame of mind. Stronger hives will do their best to fight their way into the weaker hives. Watch for fighting bees at the entrance of the hive. August is a serious month for varroa mites. One thing about the robbing that I've seen online was yeah, you tell me if you had any experience with this, but I was watching a video from the Fat Bee Man.
Yeah.
And he said that he doesn't have any problem with robbing because if robbing starts, he cracks open all the hives. He just goes and takes the lid and the inner cover off and cleans it up against the hive. And then they're too busy protecting their own hive to go rob anybody else's. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know. I know some of the things, like if I have frames that I'm letting them clean out, like I don't put them in front of any one hive. I put them in a central location
Yeah.
and make them all come there. I don't give them that opportunity to go check out the other hives. I think, sometimes when you're rearranging your hives, you'll have equipment that you might leave out. I don't leave it by those hives, I remove it.
Right. That's a good idea.
All the chores.
Okay, let's see. Okay, the varroa mites is a serious problem. Oh yeah, this is the time, the varroa mites is the time, this is the time of year when it really know that that's an issue. If you haven't looked for varroa this summer, do so now as described in July. August is the month to begin thinking about winter. A weak hive should be dequeened and united with a stronger hive. Yeah, if you lose your queen, that's another thing that you can do. You can merge them. I wouldn't attempt that myself without Kelly's help because I'm not sure if I know exactly how to do that. So
And you can definitely merge. I guess it's like a 50-50 chance. I've merged two this, and they both survived, and that was just like a miracle. But
right, they both have a different smell. So to me, it seems like I don't know.
when I had a hive that the worker became a laying worker, and I was out there and I just tore the hive apart. Like I was throwing frames. And I know that sounds aggressive, but I couldn't find her and I couldn't leave her in the hive. So my neighbors must have thought I was crazy because I was chucking frames and I threw the boxes and because I just wanted to shake them all out, and then I reassembled it, and like that, the bees that could fly, they all came back in there, and next thing I knew, they had queen cells. So I was like, right.
Oh, so because she was a laying worker,
Yeah,
they weren't going to make a queen because she was laying.
that's right. They thought they had a queen. So
Okay.
once I got rid of her, and see, she was too fat to make it back to the hive. That's why you throw her out. And so then she died because it was the nighttime, so it was too cold for her.
Right.
And most likely there was a ball somewhere, I just didn't see it, and they were trying in that regard. And it worked. But I'll tell you, that's rare. I mean, a lot of times once they go that direction,
Right.
you're done.
You were combining them with another one?
No, I just got rid of that queen and put them back together without that queen on that example.
Well, how did they produce a queen then?
Oh, I took a frame from
Okay.
another.
Okay.
That's a good point.
You took another
Yeah.
frame of eggs from another hive.
Right, I took a whole frame of eggs from a strong hive and gave it to them. Thank you, Troy.
But if you wouldn't have gotten rid of her, they wouldn't have giving them that frame of eggs. They wouldn't have produced anything. They wouldn't have. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Observations and ideas. The Kentucky
And
beekeepers.
we're at like 6 minutes just.
Okay, all right. I think it's gonna go pretty quick from here because we're getting into September. Kentucky beekeepers work together at the honey booth at the state fair each year in Louisville. And I actually found the Kentucky State Beekeepers, so, oh, there they are. By this time of the year, you and your beekeeping friends nearby, know whether you have had a good year. You can compare notes, and it really, really does help going to the meetings and, hearing all the stuff that everybody else went through, cause I would have never knew to try that with a lane worker, unless Kelly had.
Well, and I learned it from another beekeeper at the meeting too. I mean, it is very helpful.
It's wonderful. So September?
Yep.
What's happening in the hive? Brood rearing begins to taper off and drone brood has disappeared. Often, that's one of those things where you see the dead bees out there, so that may be why, just look at them, do they have big eyes? If they are, they're the drones, so. Often a second honey flow comes on. Goldenrod and aster bloom at this time. With a good location, good weather conditions, the beekeeper can make a significant crop. Have an empty super on your hive to take advantage of this possibility. Your experience from previous years will tell you whether or not the bees can make a late season crop in your area. And sometimes, it's weather permitting. You got enough plants around, but it's just depending on the weather. Let's see, beekeeper's chores, put those mite treatments on. Mite treatments. September's weather may keep you from putting the aperture gel for varroa mites or menthol for the trachea mites on. Wait until daytime temperatures are regularly below 85 degrees. Beekeepers often face a September dilemma. If they put on their apiston on this early September, they will not be able to harvest the honey made in that time. If they wait until late September, varroa mites may be out of control, and your honey went too far up. You've lost the hive. The best approach is to monitor your varroa mites through this late summer. That information will allow you to make an informed decision. The last week of warm weather or some time to access your hives and see which ones are ready for winter. It is still time to feed syrup those without significant stored honey and unite the weakest hives with stronger hives. Observations and ideas. It's a good time to show your friends it's yellow jacket season. That's a yellow jacket. That's a honeybee. They always get them mixed up, so it's like, that guy's mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasp and yellow jackets. My family call them devils.
Yeah, because they're just small enough to sneak in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's see, did we,
Mm.
okay.
Propolis.
Yeah, they're making a lot more propolis this time of the year, and those are the dead drones. So we're gonna go through these last few slides because stuff that's happening is definitely slow down. So, beekeeper's chores, remove your queen excluders, remove your mite treatments, and check your hives one last time. Make sure that you can use some chicken wire to keep skunks out of your hives, and you're the only one with a bear problem.
You'll be getting
I think so far.
No.
You'll be getting, well, I mean, if you're not out in the middle of the night, you're probably gonna see them anyway,
Yeah.
I think I'll never go out again.
Well,
So, gosh. So, okay, observations and ideas. Let's see. After the frost is the eviction of the drones. Alright, November and December. What's happening inside the hive? They're forming a cluster. And this one over here, because they're so tightly packed together here in the hive, a mouse has gotten in because there was no, if you use the entrance reducers that are made out of wood, the mice can go right through those. If you use the metal ones, my mentor uses a wooden one with a metal one over top. He likes the insulation for the hole. But if you don't use the metal one, then they can they can just chew their way right in there, but the metal one stops them. So, at least from that area.
Here's a picture of it, yeah.
And that's the metal entrance reducer. Okay, and observations and ideas, plant trees. That one's a black locust, and why would anybody plant a locust tree? And that one is a tulip poplar, and they're two of the trees that you can plant to provide the bees extra nectar early in the year.
Did you give that to your dog?
Huh? No. No, I felt that and I was like, I can't resist. So that's gotta go in.
That's wrong, don't do that to your dog.
Well, it's gonna keep him safe.
It is good. They can't figure it out after the first one.
Yeah, my dog